Facts about Jacob wrestling with God. Welcome to a journey through one of the most profound and mysterious encounters in all of sacred literature. Today, we're exploring 100 facts about Jacob's wrestling match with God, a story that has captivated hearts and minds for over 3,000 years. This is not just ancient history. This is a story about struggle, transformation, and the dawn that follows our darkest nights. So settle in, take a deep breath, and let us begin at the riverbank where everything changed. Fact 1. The name Jacob or Yaakov in Hebrew means heel grabber or he who supplants. This name was given to him at birth for a remarkable reason. When Jacob and his twin brother Esau were born, Jacob emerged from the womb grasping his brother's heel, as if trying to pull him back and be born first. From his very first breath, Jacob's identity was tied to struggle and striving. His name carried a prophecy. This would be a man who would wrestle with destiny itself. Little did anyone know how literally this would come true on a dark night by the Jabbok River. Fact 2. The Jabbok River location. The wrestling match took place at a very specific location, the ford of the Jabbok River, in what is now the country of Jordan. The Jabbok is a tributary of the Jordan River, flowing from east to west through a deep gorge. But here's something beautiful. The Hebrew word for wrestle used in this passage is yavek, and it sounds remarkably similar to Jabbok, or Yebuk in Hebrew. This is not coincidence, it's poetry. The ancient writers were telling us that the very place where Jacob struggled carries the echo of struggle in its name. The river itself seems to wrestle through the gorge, just as Jacob would wrestle through his transformation. The Jabbok marked a boundary between the land of his exile and the land of his birth, between his past and his future, between who he was and who he would become. Fact 3. Jacob was alone. Genesis 32 verse 24 tells us something crucial. So Jacob was left alone. This was not a casual moment of solitude. Jacob had just spent the evening dividing his family, servants, and possessions into two groups, sending them ahead across the river with elaborate gifts for his estranged brother Esau. He orchestrated everything, positioned everyone strategically, and then he stayed behind. Alone. Some scholars suggest this was strategic. If Esau attacked one group, the other might escape. But there's something deeper here. Jacob, the man who had always relied on cunning and strategy, on manipulation and planning, found himself stripped of all props and protections. In that vulnerable solitude, with nothing between him and the night sky, nothing between him and his fears, nothing between him and God, that's when the encounter happened. Sometimes we must be alone to truly meet the divine. Sometimes God waits for the noise to fade before speaking. Fact 4. It happened at night. The wrestling began at night and continued until dawn. This timing is deeply significant in biblical literature. Night represents uncertainty, fear, the unknown. It's when we cannot see clearly, when dangers are hidden, when we are most vulnerable. Throughout Scripture, night is often when the deepest spiritual encounters occur. It was at night that God came to Abraham in a deep sleep to make covenant with him. It was at night that God wrestled with Jacob. Centuries later, Jesus would pray through the night in Gethsemane before his crucifixion. The darkness of Jacob's wrestling was both literal and metaphorical. He was wrestling with his past, the brother he had deceived. He was wrestling with his future, uncertain and frightening. He was wrestling with his identity. Who was he, really, beneath all the schemes and strategies? Night is when we face our truest selves. And sometimes, that's when we meet God most authentically. Fact 5. The mysterious opponent. Genesis 32 verse 24 calls Jacob's opponent simply a man. Ish in Hebrew. Not God, not an angel, but a man. Yet later in the passage, Jacob declares that he has seen God face to face. The prophet Hosea, writing centuries later, identifies the figure as an angel. Jewish tradition offers multiple interpretations. Some say it was the angel of Esau. Others say it was a manifestation of Jacob's own conscience. This beautiful ambiguity is intentional. The text invites us to sit with mystery rather than demanding clear answers. In our deepest struggles, we often cannot clearly distinguish what we're wrestling with. Is it circumstances? Is it God? Is it our own inner demons? Is it all of these at once? The figure is man and more than man, physical and spiritual, opponent and blessing giver. This is the paradox of divine encounter. God comes to us in ways that are both intimate and mysterious, clear and confusing, defeating us and lifting us up simultaneously. Fact 6. The physical struggle was real. This was not a metaphorical or purely spiritual experience. The text emphasizes the physicality. A man wrestled with him. The Hebrew word suggests a violent, dust-raising, sweat-producing struggle. Jacob's opponent even struck his hip socket, causing a dislocation or injury that left Jacob with a permanent limp. Ancient Near Eastern wrestling was brutal, a test of strength, endurance, and will. Matches could last hours. The goal was to throw your opponent to the ground and pin them there. Why does this matter? Because it tells us that our spiritual struggles are not divorced from our physical reality. We are not disembodied souls having a temporary earthly experience. We are embodied beings, and our encounters with the divine involve all of who we are. Our bodies carry our traumas, our struggles, our transformations. Jacob's limp would forever remind him, and us, that wrestling with God leaves marks. Transformation costs something. Growth involves real pain. Fact 7. It lasted until dawn. The wrestling continued through the entire night, hours and hours of sustained struggle. Genesis 32 verse 24 says till daybreak, and verse 26 repeats for it is daybreak. The text wants us to understand the duration, the exhaustion, the relentlessness of this encounter. Have you ever been awake all night with worry? With pain? With a sick child? With grief? With questions that won't let you sleep? Then you understand something of Jacob's night. But here's the profound truth. It lasted until dawn, not forever. The night was long, but it had an end. This is one of the great promises embedded in Jacob's story. The darkness does not last forever. Morning comes. Light breaks through. The psalmist would later write, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." Jacob's wrestling testifies to this truth. Hold on through the darkness, because dawn is coming.